First, Crossrail, now the Northern Line. ITV News London has learned that the planned extension to the tube line that links the north of the capital to parts of the south has been delayed by 9 months. When it's up and running, it will connect 20,000 more homes in Battersea to the tube network. But its new opening date is now autumn 2021. Our political correspondent Simon Harris went to find out why.
Battersea Power Station, a forest of tower cranes. One day, thousands of Londoners will call it home. They'll even have their very own tube station. But today, the Northern Line extension became the latest Transport for London scheme to hit a snag. Instead of opening in December 2020, it's unlikely to carry passengers before autumn 2021. This is yet another dent to TfL's reputation. The organisation has already had to postpone indefinitely the opening of its other big project, Crossrail. A short distance down the line at Nine Elms is another station much anticipated by local people who will now have to wait a further 9 months before they can use it.
That's the last thing I was expecting. It's not that big a project, is it? It is, but it isn't. It's underground, it's not going way out into the suburbs or anything like that.
It's about right though, isn't it, for most things, when you think about Transport for London, the buses, the train, even the Elizabeth line's not even going to open on time anyway.
It's disappointing, but I think you have to get used to it.
Local locksmith Alan Sharp was relying on the new tube for customers and staff.
We've planned our business on this opening up, I think it was next year, so we've sort of built the shop up and planned for that sort of work and advertised local locksmithing things, so yeah, it's upsetting if it's going to be delayed a little bit.
The delay's been caused in part by alterations to the design of the building, which will sit on top of the station at Battersea. But there's another complication. TfL managers want to synchronise the Northern Line extension with a major upgrade at Bank Station in the city, and that won't be ready until September 2021.
But yet another sign that TfL is not on top of these major projects. They're slipping month after month, year after year, and ultimately time means money in building. It's going to cost Londoners dearly.
Some experts suspect TfL is suffering from a fundamental problem when it comes to major schemes.
The reality is Transport for London is running a major programme of infrastructure upgrades, and it doesn't have the capacity of senior level project management that it needs to deliver it.
Tonight, both Battersea Power Station and TfL released statements saying they were working collaboratively. TfL talked of making good progress, but the Northern Line extension is clearly not going to arrive on time.
It isn't, and isn't it another major embarrassment for TfL, another project that's facing huge delays?
Yes, and interestingly, both TfL and Battersea Power Station using those words working collaboratively in their statements, clearly keen not to point the fingers at each other. But my understanding is that bosses at TfL do think that a large part of the problem is caused by changes to the building being built on top of Battersea Tube Station. Every time another story or two is added, that means deeper piles have to be sunk into the ground. They've had to change things like the lift shafts, the escalator shafts and the configuration of the whole station. But at the same time, there is no doubt that the problems at Bank, the big development at Bank, are having some impact. TfL says that is going to effectively close the Bank branch during the spring and summer of 2021. Trying to introduce a new line, the Northern Line extension, at the same time the Bank branch is closed would be a recipe for disaster, so they've decided to be cautious and wait until the Bank upgrade is finished in autumn 2021. No word from the Mayor's office tonight on this delay.
We shall watch and wait for that. Simon, thank you.
3 people are in hospital tonight after a series of stabbings in Tower Hamlets. 2 men were attacked at a GP surgery. The third, a 77-year-old woman, was stabbed at a nearby health centre. Well, police tonight have a 40-year-old man under arrest. Our correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
It might have been cold outside, but that didn't stop police treating passers-by to this bizarre sight. A nearly naked man wearing just his underwear being marched in handcuffs along a chilly street in London's East End before being locked in the back of a police van. Earlier, police and paramedics were called to a GP surgery in Bow where 2 men had been stabbed. One of them apparently a patient who intervened to try to calm the attacker down. Ishin Kamal heard what happened from neighbours who were inside.
The man that was waiting to go in was in this waiting room, and he got stabbed then, trying to calm him down or whatever. That's what happened. That's what they said.
The attacker, it appears, ran from the Tredegar Clinic along St Stephen's Road to another surgery in the next street. There, a woman of 77 was stabbed. With reports of 3 stabbings in 2 surgeries, the police response was perhaps inevitable. Officers with guns raced to St Stephen's Road, but terrorism was quickly ruled out. All 3 victims are in hospital, but the police say none of their injuries are life-threatening. Lawrence Hiller arrived at the first surgery for an appointment just moments after the stabbings.
I feel kind of quite lucky. Yeah, just in those 5 minutes that I was away, that happened. And I could have maybe, I don't know, I feel like I would have maybe done something, but maybe something stupid, I don't know.
Scotland Yard says the 40-year-old man arrested on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm was stripped so officers could check for injuries. Tonight, he's in custody. Simon Harris, ITV News, Bow.
Well, it is in many ways astonishing that a drone can cause so much disruption at one of Europe's busiest airports. Police have said whoever is behind it could end up in jail. So what are the rules around flying these devices and what can be done to stop the disruption? Our correspondent Simon Harris has been looking into it.
It might look like a sledgehammer to crack a nut, but this is one way to deal with a rogue drone. Shoot it down using a rocket-propelled net to tangle the rotors. Or birds of prey can be trained to swoop down and catch a drone in their talons. This more basic technique has been used by police in Holland. One British company has come up with an electronic jammer to disrupt the signal between a drone and its operator, making it impossible to control. The response from the authorities hasn't been encouraging.
There's been no response from the authorities, from government, even though we've done demonstrations for government bodies and all the rest of it. They know it works, and yet nobody's doing anything about it.
Instead, the Civil Aviation Authority has relied on a set of legally enforceable rules illustrated in this cartoon guide.
Also, stay well clear of airports and airfields.
Earlier this year, new laws were introduced which mean it's now illegal to fly a drone within 1 kilometre of an airport. Any drone must also weigh under 20 kilograms and can't be flown above 400 feet. Anyone breaking the rules faces up to 5 years in prison, but ministers admit more needs to be done.
The other step we need to take is on counter-drone technology, and whether that's through technology or through physical measures such as nets. We're working closely with the police and the Home Office on introducing that into the country.
At Gatwick today, one of the more unusual sights was a man standing on a van wearing strange goggles. He turned out to be drone pilot Tony Marchant, who wanted to see if he could spot the troublemakers.
I've come down to check it out and I've brought my goggles just so I can scan all channels to see if anyone's flying and then I can record it. But there's supposed to be loads of police and everything, but I haven't seen one police car.
But Mr Marchant didn't have to wait long. Not surprisingly, he too attracted the attention of the police, who clearly wanted to know what he was up to. That a small, possibly cheap piece of technology can cripple a major airport for an entire day has thrown a spotlight on an activity which has for some time caused growing concern in the aviation world. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Well, there is more on your rights and whether you're entitled to compensation by going to our website. Just search for ITV London. Next tonight, for more than 3 hours today, Sadiq Khan was grilled by the London Assembly about what he knew about the delay to Crossrail. The mayor repeatedly denied that he had been told it wouldn't open on time a month before it was publicly announced. There is no smoking gun, he told Assembly members. Our political correspondent Simon Harris was watching.
This was no ordinary City Hall session, but an extraordinary meeting of the Transport Committee after Assembly members issued a summons to the Mayor and his Transport Commissioner ordering them to answer questions. And one in particular, when did they know Crossrail was in trouble and wouldn't open this month?
But what I really want to understand, did you have an inkling, did you have alarm bells, Mr Mayor, this project was not going to open on time?
We were asking all the right questions and the answers we were given were providing us some reassurance.
Of course we had concerns about where this might end up, but actually that is quite different from being formally informed of a slippage in the date.
For months, the Mayor has insisted he only found out in late August that Crossrail's launch was being postponed. But 2.5 weeks ago, this is what the outgoing chairman, Sir Terry Morgan, told ITV News.
I told the Mayor on the 26th of July that the programme was no longer feasible in terms of being delivered in 2018.
Why does it matter? Because if TfL knew earlier the project was in trouble, it had a duty to tell the stock exchange.
It's not believable that we were notified December 2018 couldn't be a date that was met. And all I can assume is he's misremembered.
It's important that we know for record how you respond to Sir Terry's account.
He says a number of things that are simply untrue.
Sir Terry says at the meeting on the 26th of July he gave the Mayor this document which spelt out that even partially opening the line in December was not feasible, not least because trial operations on the line were not possible by December.
Did you personally believe Crossrail would still open in December after that 26th of July meeting?
We did.
Assembly member after Assembly member had the same line of questioning. You had briefings, you had your own person on the Crossrail board, alarm bells must have been ringing. But the Mayor and the Commissioner stuck to their narrative. Yes, there were concerns, but Crossrail kept giving assurances.
I apologise to those who want a smoking gun. There is no smoking gun.
But the Assembly doesn't know who to believe, Sadiq Khan or Sir Terry Morgan.
Clearly, one or both of you are not giving a full account.
After a meeting lasting 3 hours, the Assembly said it was frustrated. Sir Terry Morgan will be questioned in January. Simon Harris, ITV News, City Hall.